Hello everybody and welcome to AI People. Today we're talking to Markku Räsänen, who is the CEO at ConfidentialMind, which is an AI development platform for private and secure AI. Greetings, Markku.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks, Ben, for the invite.
No worries. So we always start every podcast by asking for some predictions about the AI industry as a whole. So the first one is, how do you see humans and AI collaborating with regard to work in 5 years' time and then in 15 years' time?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. But so in 5 years' time, so right now we have a pretty big, let's say, hype around AI agents. I think that in the coming years we'll still see human in the loop quite a lot, even in agents. So it's gonna be AI agents working together with humans. 15 years, that's really difficult. What's gonna happen in 15 years? I think that we are gonna see more of this kind of super intelligence, in a sense that you can basically use some type of service that will provide intelligence for you on demand to solve various problems. I think we're gonna see much more of that intelligence being used in, let's say, physical product design, also design of medicines, molecules, these type of things. So that's probably gonna be a really big change. Obviously, we're gonna see all the kind of natural language stuff as well, but like those two fields are going to be a really big thing, I think.
Do you think kind of still human in the loop in 5 years' time, but maybe not so sure in 15 years' time?
Not sure at all. I mean, 15 years into the future is really hard to predict.
Yeah.
Especially now when everything is moving so fast. But 5 years is easier. I think that in the short term, we overestimate the speed at which, let's say, humans become not needed in the processes, right? Simply because these systems, even though they evolve very rapidly, you still cannot get to 100% accuracy, right? And you need the human there to verify the result and to be kind of responsible for the thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like whenever I'm trying to do anything with AI at the moment, I still feel like I'm doing quite a lot of work, and also like having to push back and kind of tell it when it's wrong at times. But obviously, these things will change in coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I feel the same way that we are an AI startup. We use AI to automate things, agents a lot, but still, I have never been this busy in my life.
Yeah. And in terms of the kind of AGI question, you can put your own definition on what AGI is. Do you think that's something that we're getting near to, or is it still perennial 20 years away?
I think AGI as a term, of course, is difficult, as you said. Everybody has their own definition. Now I think people are starting to talk more about super intelligence, right? So having access to models that are really smart, like way smarter than most humans. I think to a degree we already have access to models that are very smart, but the problem there is that you still need to kind of verify the results. So obviously when it's a field that you have no idea about, it's harder to kind of verify that, hey, this actually makes a lot of sense. But you do get that intelligence boost in areas like where you have expertise in. Like it's really tangible. It's already there, right? Probably you've seen this in your work as well, right?
Yeah. And how do you see kind of AI affecting the economy? Do you think we're going to see more growth inequality, or do you think we're going to have a narrowing of kind of gaps in opportunity and kind of everybody will be able to kind of rise up?
Good question. So during the previous Finnish government, I was part of the group that did Finland's AI strategy. And it intersected with this GPT-3. So at the very end of that work, like GPT-3 came out or around that time. So, but there we did already talk a lot about like the inequality and what happens to jobs and so on. I'm personally not in the camp of, hey, you know, mass amounts of people are going to be unemployed. We've gone through these type of cycles in economies, like, you know, when Britain got industrialized back in the day, you know, the kind of job landscape, employment landscape changed drastically, but people found new employment.
Yeah.
I think that what's going to happen is that we will have more new kind of human facing roles that we have no idea about, right? Like, you know, kind of like all the kind of different types of therapists, for example. If you'd, you know, told your grandfather like how many people are therapists, right? That would have
Yeah.
been kind of alien to people like, you know, 70, 100 years ago, right? So I think that the economy just changes. I'm very positive overall. I'm not a doomer in that sense.
Yeah. Okay. And AI as an industry loves kind of hot piece of news. You know, there's always like a big new hype story every week. What's caught your attention in the last kind of week or two? Like, what are you getting excited about?
Well, I mean, there's of course the drama around the hiring in Meta in OpenAI. We do see similar things, you know, in Europe as well, but they're of course not in the papers. But I mean, everybody wants to get the best talent or like the talent that they think is the best, right? It's just like I think that like when it comes to kind of Zuckerberg is doing, I think factually the right thing to hire these superstars. But then what will be interesting to follow is like when you airdrop a bunch of extremely highly paid people into a team, like will that team perform in an ideal way or not, right? And we've seen that, for example, in professional sports, that these sort of dream rosters haven't always performed as well as one would think.
Yeah. No, the manager becomes hugely important in the professional sports scene, doesn't it? Like getting all those people to kind of tie together with a coherent strategy.
Yeah, and I think that like obviously like Zuckerberg's very smart, so he actually started with the manager, so that's why he did that kind of scale acqui-hire and get, you know, Alex Wang in the place, and I would imagine that that's kind of the dream team manager, and then who will make sure that the team executes and gets results and has a good like kind of working atmosphere.
Yeah, okay. So before we jump into talking about Confidential Mind, I just wonder if you want to introduce yourself a little bit. I'm interested in your journey, kind of going from studying law, like being a lawyer, and then, you know, moving into kind of serial entrepreneurship where you are now.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, as you said earlier, so my name is Markku Räsänen. I'm born originally in Finland, but I have lived around 9 years of my life in different countries in Estonia, in Germany, in US, a little bit in China and Taiwan as well as a summer job. So I mean, I have basically been always dealing with computers. I know how to program a little bit. I know how to be an amateur Linux sysadmin. I know these things. I'm like drawn to all that stuff. I'm like really into the things, and I've like pretty much ever since I was a kid, I've always like assembled my own computer, all these type of things. And but I decided that like studying engineering wasn't the right path for me. So I chose law basically because I mean the whole point of the law school is to teach you how to think, right? Okay. And then you have these various specializations there. I specialized in intellectual property law, basically. So open source, complex open source licensing, copyright as well when it comes to kind of software stuff.
So you were still in that technical world, just coming at it from a different angle. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we in my first internship, I remember we defended the Pirate Bay guys, for example, here in Finland, and had some other kind of landmark cases as well. We're defending an artist against Timbaland, for example, for copyright infringement, or kind of suing Timbaland for copyright infringement. All these kind of one-off cases. I think also the first case for basically stealing online property, like a video game property and these type of things. So, but I haven't really practiced law in ages. It was more like I did study law in the last place where I studied was Stanford in the US, and already there people were, it's very entrepreneurial. They're saying that I saw that some people there become lawyers. They're very into that. They work in the law firm or work in-house in some companies. And some people will become entrepreneurs or VCs or whatnot. So that, when I started there, I already was thinking that I want to be in the industry. And after the US came back to Finland and worked at a company called Tuxera that makes embedded file systems. So pretty much everybody in the Western world has a device at home that has Tuxera software inside. Like televisions, smartphones, routers, cars, whatever, right? Like all kinds of consumer electronics devices. So, and file system, of course, is reading and writing data inside Linux. So there I pretty quickly stopped doing the law part and went into operations, chief operating officer, and focused on partnerships and sales, these type of things. And that's pretty much the journey that I'm on. So I've been advising and also investing in various technology startups. And my latest personal startup is, of course, this ConfidentialMind, that's where I have two other co-founders in.
Yeah, so do you want to just introduce the company, talk about the problem that you're solving and why it matters now?
Yeah, so ConfidentialMind, the idea for the company came about in 2023. We have for quite a while been talking about a couple of problems that we saw, one thing being vendor lock, right? So my co-founders, Severi and Esko, they had quite a bit of trouble with vendor lock into a specific hyperscaler cloud, right? So they build everything there. They build a very good platform for video streaming, for kind of online streaming, and wanted to port that into something, more affordable, run it somewhere else, but you just couldn't because you're using the infrastructure provided by the hyperscaler, especially the software infrastructure. So that was an item we started talking about, that maybe there's a way to do this, all of this stuff right now, especially because Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is originally a project developed at Google for managing thousands of servers, basically building your own cloud, right? And then Kubernetes started to be more mature, and we started discussing that. What if we build a stack, like a platform? Because what often happens in startups is that you start, especially if you're doing something more difficult in software, right? You start from zero, right?
Yep.
You build your stack, and a lot of time goes into that. But what if we could offer startups that platform, and they could build faster? We had seen companies like Stupa-based, gain traction with their own kind of, let's say, lane that they chose, focus that they chose. And at the same time, like GPT-3 came out, I saw that, okay, like AI is probably the right angle to go because everybody is starting from zero.
Yeah.
And then, we were also thinking that, okay, what are the kind of key problems for us other than, it would be great that we would have a stack or a platform ready made. So one thing that came about is, of course, like the information security. Like essentially all the big AI APIs are third-party services. So essentially you're sending all your secrets there. And we had seen that our friends and we ourselves, we're like interested in open source LLMs and kind of tinkering with them. And hey, this is really cool. You can actually run your own stuff on your own hardware. And I mean, at least I have had this heuristic that, like, irrespective of the tech company where you work at or where you're involved in any way, right? It's good to look at what are the people doing on their free time? What are they excited about, right? And at that time, it seemed like everyone's like really excited, and we were excited about the open source LLMs, and that those things are going to be a big thing. And eventually, we're going to go to like kind of on-device LLMs, and that's pretty much the direction. And there's more privacy there. So with those items, we decided to combine them essentially into an AI platform that then became ConfidentialMind. And the idea with ConfidentialMind is all AI inference is pretty much done on top of Kubernetes. Nobody really likes Kubernetes, right? It's like complex to configure, complex to manage. So what if we just, let's say, abstract away all the complexity of Kubernetes and make it super, super easy for software engineers to, deploy their own AI infrastructure, deploy their own AI systems, and do that pretty much in any environment. They can do that on-prem, they can do that in a private cloud, they can do that in a virtual private cloud, they can even do that in the edge, and just make everything really, really simple, but at the same time that everything works really, really well. And that's kind of the path that we're on.
So the kind of safety and security is one of the kind of key differentiators, if you like, and kind of what makes you unique. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So kind of focus on safety, focus on security, focus on everything just working well. But I think that, like, overall, of course, in the world, there are multiple, let's say, inference platforms for generative AI. What sets us apart is that quite a while ago, we already saw that, like, it's not enough that you help somebody like deploy the LLMs, okay? Then you have a bunch of LLMs running in some environment, and you still need to build a lot of software on top, right? So we figured that what if we build that software on top, right? So that then the part for integration is so much smaller, right? So essentially what we're doing, we're building production grade, RAG system. It comes included in the platform, semantic search, a whole, agent platform, agent experience. We are now doing also observability and also AI observability. So everything's there in the platform. Obviously, it's not like 100 miles wide. It's all those components, but curated by us in a way that we would like to use ourselves.
So it's really kind of an end-to-end stack then, because obviously lots of companies do one of those things, like they'll have like a security and governance solution or an observability solution, or even like the developer platform, but you're kind of putting everything together into a kind of a one-stop shop, if you like, that makes it kind of super easy for people to build and deploy.
Yeah, correct. And obviously, like, we're not building every single part of that ourselves. So we do use open source components. We do, fork certain projects. But the key parts of the IP, like how the system is secured, how the different parts of the system communicate with each other, the user experience, deployment, these are our own IP, as are the AI systems as well.
Presumably, you're kind of focusing on kind of highly regulated sectors, so kind of government, kind of big enterprise companies. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's correct. So so far, we have had quite a lot of success also with universities. So universities run their own compute, but the main focus is with those industries, and of course with the governments and nation state actors that want to self-host AI, basically. We thought, like, when we got started, that hey, enterprises, especially in Europe, are going to be faster to adopt AI than maybe they are currently. But it hasn't really been a big problem for us, because what we have done, while the enterprises are still like relatively slow in doing self-hosting and these type of things, we've basically started working with the European cloud providers. So we are in some of those, we're in the background. Nobody knows necessarily that we're there. Managed service providers as well. And also neo clouds as well.
Yeah.
So through them we gain access to customers, and overall we've been focusing heavily on the kind of channel model in sales.
So with these kind of regulated industries and other enterprise companies that are working with cloud-based LLM kind of providers at the moment, like what are the workarounds? Like what are the challenges that they're facing, that ConfidentialMind solves?
Yeah, so I mean, if you are a highly regulated industry, let's say an enterprise working in, I don't know, finance, defense, something to do with healthcare, these kind of industry sectors, right? What we see is that, of course, all of them also use hyperscale cloud, right? But the AI applications that they build in those cloud environments typically are ones that have access to a limited set of data, right? Like, those applications don't necessarily have access to like really confidential data, or it just, like, often it's even just like information that's already public, for example, connected to some database on their website or whatnot. And the overall challenge, of course, is AI is powerful, but it's powerful if you can kind of combine it with all the data you have, and that's basically what we're working on, what we're helping with. So these organizations, when they get started with us, they can deploy our platform in the VPC, in the, for example, Azure or AWS or Google Cloud or Oracle or whatnot. And what makes us also quite unique is that they can always migrate that elsewhere, that environment.
Yeah.
So we've made everything so that it's a self-contained AI platform within that environment, and it can then be easily migrated to, for example, if they want to set up their private cloud or on-prem environment, and it works the same way there as well, right? And we assist with those migrations. Instead of months, those are typically like a couple of days.
And I guess as AI becomes, a bigger part of the business value, then having that control over the kind of applications that you're building is going to become more and more important, and kind of dominate the conversation more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, it's, of course, one thing is security. So everyone's, in enterprise focused on security and data privacy, data security. But another thing will be also cost, right? So as AI permeates everything in your organization, you will start to see, gigantic cloud bills. Organizations, the bigger they are driven also by the finance department, who will then say like, okay, why don't we just host this ourselves or buy it as a managed service and save 50%? Like, that's, for example, what the neo clouds are currently advertising, that you can just like that save 50%, because not all these workloads actually need like the latest and the biggest models, right? Like you can do most of the enterprise workloads with open weights LLMs, basically.
And you mentioned that some of the components of what you've built have come from the open source world. Like if somebody wanted to kind of literally start from scratch and build everything in kind of open source, how big a task is that? Is that kind of possible, or is that going to be kind of time wise like really prohibitive for kind of people doing that?
I mean, I already got some gray hair from the last couple of years, but like, I mean, I haven't even, been part of the engineering work, but it's a lot of work, basically. I mean, the thing where we spend a lot of time on is like, you have a lot of different components, a lot of different things in this universe, this self-hosting universe of LLMs. Like, what are the right components, right? Okay, let's start, for example, with vector databases, right? Like there are a lot of different vector databases. And when we got started, like customers would tell us, do you support this vector database? Do you support this vector database? Do you support this vector database? And we started thinking like, why do you want, like, can you articulate to us, like why you want this specific vector database? Like what makes it so good? And often it was like really brand driven in a sense, because when you plot like the vector databases into a performance like chart, they all fall in within the same kind of scatter shot, right? They're all within the same kind of cluster. So, we decided that, hey, we should definitely go with, so in our case, for example, PG Vector, which is a project that is going like really strongly, adding features, will be even a bigger thing that it already is. So all these kind of decisions, but we've made like probably like 20 big decisions like this, and hundreds of smaller ones, right?
Yeah. And are you seeing kind of many differences between kind of the US and Europe in terms of their approach to AI infra adoption? Just thinking in terms of kind of regulations and the way people kind of view that, are you seeing much difference?
Well, I mean, the biggest difference with US and EU is really US organizations move really fast, right? So when a European company has maybe done one POC, US company has potentially done like 3 to 5 in the same amount of time. When it comes to things like, like the things that we do, right? I had this thought, like, having lived in the US and knowing the IT sector a little bit and the players there and spending a lot of time there every year, that we would probably have like less of a market there. But right now it looks like it's an equal opportunity also in the US, because the big companies are, some of them are like very, very mature in terms of cloud adoption. And because the IT industry always moves in kind of cycles, right? So if somebody is at the end of the cloud cycle, okay, what comes next, right? This kind of self-hosting, kind of, building your own infrastructure. And we've heard this, for example, from, really big US banks, that they're doing like partial cloud exits and these type of things. And of course, there's also the part of some companies are just so big that they rely very heavily in private clouds, basically. So the US opportunity is big, and then in Europe, it's also bigger than we expected, but it's mainly because of what's happening in geopolitics, right? Like Everyone in the EU is a little bit on their toes with what's happening in the US admin. Like, can
Hmm.
somebody just shut off the cloud services and these type of things? And companies are looking for alternatives, and that of course benefits us.
Okay, so in the US, they kind of move faster, but they don't have that kind of regulatory political pressure. But because they're moving faster, there's a big demand there. And in the Europe, it's more driven by political concerns. Is that right?
Yeah, those are the big things, and what we're seeing already in the US is also that cost is starting to be an item. So big enterprises who are running a lot of different Gen AI workloads are looking at cost, and also like can they save by self-hosting, and if they self-host, can they do more, right? Because in the US, it's like if there's one like big high level difference between, let's say, Europe and the US has this like abundance mindset.
Hmm.
It's when it comes to AI, it's always like, how can we do more? How can we grow faster? How can we hire more people that work together with AI and go even bigger? And then in Europe, it's like, okay, let's adopt AI so that we can just start like getting rid of people. But it's like less of a this kind of let's grow type
Yeah,
of
it's
discussion.
interesting how it kind of brings out the kind of culture and kind of amplifies that, I guess. And
Yeah.
when kind of thinking about like regulatory compliance, like do you think that'll become a key driver in AI purchasing decisions? Where is it at the moment, like when these things are getting signed off?
I think it's really early days for that because most of the AI POCs, even in enterprise, I mean, these are companies are not really utilizing like really critical data. They're not necessarily taking AI into the core of their industries if that's like a regulated industry. We'll see much more of that because like those organizations in the regulated industries that move fast will then of course force others to move in a similar manner. And explainability, like kind of how the data was processed, where was it processed, which country, by whom, all these things are going to matter a lot.
And do you ever see a point where like explainability and observability becomes like a requirement for kind of regulation in certain industries?
I don't know if it's going to be like anytime soon a requirement from the regulators, but it's a business reality already. Like, if you want to build like high performance AI applications and like deploy them, like you need to know what's happening under the hood. Basically, you need to do evals. You need to see how the system is performing. You need to do logs, see where and how the data is processed, and all these things. These are kind of a requirement already.
And how do you see the kind of, race for kind of open source models marrying up with like responsible AI governance?
I think that those two are lining up really well. I personally think that open source LLMs will win in the enterprise. We have seen like in software, in databases, in other segments in enterprise software that, let's say, I mean, the kind of thought experiment that I often use is, let's say there's a 10% difference in performance. Many enterprises will still choose the open option
Hmm.
because it's kind of like running a big company or running IT in big company. It's sort of a decision tree type of thing.
Yeah.
So you want to have options in the future to not be reliant on any one model provider. You want to like not be reliant on the model changing because these API based models they constantly change, and that of course causes engineering problems as well. But I mean, OpenAI soon, hopefully releasing their open source model. I think that's just a testament of where this is heading. Like, why would they release an open source model if like, why do they have to release an open source model is a good question.
Yeah, I guess because the market's demanding it and they're feeling they've got to respond to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, partially it's of course like China is releasing very, very good models as open source models and kind of causing sort of, how would I say, like kind of deflation in a sense in the marketplace. But obviously very good strategy from the Chinese players, like because they get the mind share, they get the enterprise installs, they get to kind of lead the enterprise future as well.
And when you're thinking about building ConfidentialMind, like you mentioned it a little bit earlier on, like the decisions you were having to make around kind of the vector databases, like how do you balance like the ultimate product vision of like where you want to be with like very specific demands from, you know, sectors like defense or telecom or, you know, any industries you're talking to?
Yeah, it's a good question because like where this applies the most is, for example, in the area of AI systems, like, you know, RAG and these type of things where you use LLMs to process information. I mean, ideally, you would like to basically tailor those to specific use cases. And our approach there has been that we create tools that are extremely easy for the customers to use. And then they can tailor those pre-made AI systems, pre-made by us, to their use case if their use case demands that. So kind of, you know, they can do fine-tuning in a very, very simple way without needing to be an AI ML person. And in the future, they can also tune those AI systems with their data to perform even better in those use cases. So that's kind of our chosen modus operandi or way of working here. And the other thing is we'll keep being very opinionated. Like instead of supporting 15 different vector databases, we'll support one. Instead of supporting, you know, certain frameworks, we'll support like a couple of them really well. So
yeah, so kind of making a stance and saying this is the, you know, we feel the right way of doing things.
Yeah, and of course, on the like some areas make it simpler. Like, you know, the agent side, for example, is simpler because there are kind of emerging standards there, MCP and A2A, for example. So okay, easy to support those. Often in enterprise software, at least to me, it feels like a good place to be when you're supporting like standards, and then, you know, your customers can have a kind of leeway how they work with your product.
And when you're thinking about funding, like in building the company, I mean, I feel like the VC industry has changed like quite a bit in recent years. How have you seen talking to kind of investors with ConfidentialMind versus was it Textera, the company that you were with previously?
I mean, I was with Tuxera previously. I wasn't one of the founders there, but was an executive there. I mean, both of these companies, you know, ConfidentialMind and Tuxera, they do kind of deep tech software, so, you know, infra backend systems. Those are always areas where, I mean, they're difficult to pitch to, you know, your everyday VC because it's just not an
not
application.
Sexy enough. Yeah.
No, not necessarily sexy and so on. And like somebody who is not in enterprise IT doesn't necessarily have the kind of you know, experience of like where do these things fit in and so on. In the case of ConfidentialMind, like we've been very, you know, fortunate to find investors who are, you know, enterprise software experts, former European enterprise software founders who've been very successful. For our segment, it's early days, and that's causing some problems, because basically the VCs just see like that this total worldwide AI data center spend, like that's a massive market. It's one of the biggest markets in the world. Like there's some estimates that it's going to be like $1.7 trillion in 2035, right? And that doesn't include any SaaS software. It's just AI, right?
Yeah, wow.
Just AI, right? And then, okay, is all of that going to be in the cloud? And actually, what is happening in this market is that like LLMs got started, pretty much all of that market was in the cloud, right? But now, like this self-hosting paradigm and private clouds and on-prem, it's emerging, and there are some estimates that like this segment where we are is going to be more than 400 billion out of that 1.7 trillion in 2035, right? So it's going from near zero to 400 billion in like a decade, basically.
And that'll become a category in its own, like that. I don't know, is it like sovereign AI or private AI? What's the kind of term that we all need to start calling that?
I think one term that they use is like enterprise, data center AI platform. So kind of like any case where somebody has their own data center, or they rent a data center, or they have a private cloud. Sovereign is good. I think that potentially like sovereign AI market, if you include the nation states, is going to be even bigger. But then this is like, so the idea of this market segment is enterprises kind of graduating certain workloads out of the public cloud. And when they gain enough expertise in a certain segment, they're like, hey, we can actually run these and these AI workloads ourselves, and we can save a lot of money. Let's do it. And that's the kind of logic that will grow this market.
Great stuff. Well, it's been great having you on today, Markku. If people want to get in touch, like what's the best way to reach you? Are you on kind of X or LinkedIn or email? Where do you spend most of your time?
I'm on all of these, but best way is, of course, to email me at Markku@ConfidentialMind.com. And we're always happy to discuss with organizations who are thinking about self-hosting, or who have like various use cases that they would like to think through.
Great stuff. Well, thank you for your time today, Markku, and thanks to everybody watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of AI People coming very soon.